You ever buy yourself a slice of heaven only to realize it comes with a war you never asked for? That's how I wound up battling an HOA queen with a drone, a stack of fines, and enough arrogance to fill the whole Rocky Mountain range just because I wanted a quiet life in Colorado. See, I came up here for silence. 40 acres of raw forest, a half-collapsed fire lookout tower, and a cabin that still smelled like burned pine. No neighbors, no meetings, nobody telling me where to park my truck or what color to paint my roof. It was the kind of place where you could breathe deep and finally hear yourself think. I spent that first year working my tail off, patching up the roof rigging solar panels, catching rainwater, and wiring every tree and corner with enough sensors and cameras to make my old buddies in military intelligence proud. Some folks might call it paranoid. I call it being ready. Life taught me you never know what's coming. Turns out I was right about that. Just 2 days after I'd wired up my last motion sensor, a black SUV came crawling up my driveway like it was scouting for a bank heist. Out pops this guy Elliot clipboard suit sharp enough to cut cheese hair not one strand out of place. He walks right up to my porch like he owns it, doesn't even bother knocking. Good afternoon, sir. I'm here on behalf of the Aspen Hollow Summit Homeowners Association. Your installations violate community aesthetics. That's a new one, never been accused of disrupting the aesthetics of a mountain before. I just leaned against the railing, coffee in hand, and let him say his piece. He started listing off my supposed crimes, cameras, antennas, whatever other gear offended their visual landscape code. Told me I had 72 hours to take it all down. I almost spit out my coffee. This isn't Aspen Hollow. This is my land, and unless you have a court order, you can march those shiny shoes right back down my driveway. That polite customer service mask slipped for half a second. He muttered about non-compliance, dialed his phone, and stomped off. And that's when the real circus started. Next day, the county sheriff pulled in, probably thinking he'd have to break up a brawl. We got a complaint about surveillance equipment violating privacy laws. I showed him my property line, showed him the camera angles. Nothing here points at Aspen Hollow, I said. If their folks feel spied on, maybe they should quit wandering up here. He gave my setup a once-over and shrugged. Looks fine to me. You'll probably hear from them again. He wasn't wrong. That afternoon, a new SUV, a white one this time, appears, and out steps Karen Rivers. You know the type. Platinum bob heels, sharp as tacks, eyes scanning for things to fix. She introduces herself like she's about to give me a medal, then launches right into her speech. We need to talk about your military compound. It disrupts the harmony of the mountain. I almost laughed. That's not a compound, Karen. That's just my home with a few cameras because some people don't know how to mind their own business. She tightened her lips, promised resources, and promised this wouldn't end well for me. And that's when I realized this was never about cameras, it was about control. The letters started next. White envelopes slipped under my truck's windshield. Fancy stationary warnings about scenic integrity and threats of fines. I tossed the first one in my burn barrel and got back to splitting wood. But when I spotted a black drone buzzing over my treetops that same day, I figured enough was enough. I fired a warning flare, nothing crazy, just enough to let them know I saw them. The drone zipped back toward Aspen Hollow like it had been burned. I called Rebecca Torres, my attorney. She's got the bite of a badger and knows Colorado property law inside and out. She laughed, told me to document everything, keep every letter, every video, every smug volunteer who tried to serve me. If they keep this up, we'll start sending cease and desist letters, maybe even sue for harassment. That night, another letter, this time hand-delivered by a kid who looked barely old enough to vote, dressed like he'd just left a real estate seminar. I snapped a picture, shut the door, and didn't bother opening the envelope. Confused him so bad he just stood there for a minute, probably wondering if the rule book had anything about non-compliant mountain men. But the little jabs turned into sabotage. One night, a camera on the far side of my land went dark. Not a power blip, somebody cut it. Fresh quad bike tracks in the dirt, a strip of torn fabric snagged on the fence, 2 blurry figures on the playback fumbling with tools. I called the sheriff. No faces. Not much we can do. Bureaucracy never changes. So I doubled down. Installed 2 new thermal cams up high. Motion-triggered floodlights, invisible trail cams, every feed piped to the cloud. I wanted them to know this wasn't the old man on the porch anymore. This was me fighting for my home. Then came the twist. One night, right around midnight, 2 heat signatures crept through the trees. I recognized Karen's platinum bob in the infrared. They started unbolting my antenna. That's when I hit the loudspeaker. Step away from the equipment. Law enforcement is en route. You are being recorded. Never seen anyone stumble so fast in heels. Sheriff's deputies showed up, slapped cuffs on both her and her sidekick, and took my statement while Karen shrieked about community standards. I handed over the video. "That's pretty damn clear," the deputy said. Next morning, Rebecca called, ready to go on the offensive. Because this is textbook harassment. She prepped lawsuits for trespassing, vandalism, defamation, the whole works. She even looped in the FCC since my tower was federal communication infrastructure. That's a federal crime now, Karen. Hope the view was worth it. And just when I thought it was over, the HOA countersued me, accused me of running a hostile compound, recording residents, ruining the visual harmony of the mountain. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Drove down to the sheriff's office, dropped off a hard drive full of evidence, videos, drone footage, everything. The sheriff leaned back and said, "Guess the HOA's not going to like me much after this." Even the local news picked up the story, Mountain versus HOA, cameras control and chaos. Online comments roasted Karen. Strangers started emailing, thanking me for fighting back. Some Aspen Hollow residents even reached out telling me Karen had bullied them for years about Lawn Heights garage paint, even holiday decorations. Turns out I wasn't her only target. When the DA's office called, it got real. They launched an investigation, harassment, extortion, fraud. The dominoes started to fall. Aspen Hollow homeowners came forward. Fines that weren't in any rule book. Threats over landscaping. Folks who'd been afraid to speak up suddenly felt brave with the HOA queen finally exposed. Then came a warning email. "You've made a mistake crossing Aspen Hollow. No signature. No guts either." Sent it straight to my attorney. She grinned, another charge for intimidation. One day, a weathered old rancher named Tom showed up at my gate. He wasn't HOA. In fact, he'd fought them years ago when they tried to rope him in. "They call it maintaining standards, but it's all about control," he said. "You're the first one to stand your ground." That stuck with me. This fight wasn't just about my land. It was about showing these people you can't bully everyone. The courtroom was packed the day we went to trial. Karen glared at me from across the aisle, dressed like she was about to host a charity gala. Her lawyer tried to paint me as a paranoid, militarized recluse. Rebecca shredded their witnesses. "Ma'am, you live half a mile away. These cameras couldn't see you unless you were trespassing." The jury didn't need convincing. The judge hammered the verdict: harassment, trespass, defamation. $410,000 in damages, and Karen personally liable for attempted property damage. I didn't need all that money, but I spent every penny making my land untouchable: steel fences, military-grade cameras, new comm relays. The quiet after the storm felt strange. Karen vanished, HOA accounts frozen, the whole outfit crumbling. One by one, Aspen Hollow residents showed up to thank me. "You broke the spell," one man said, shaking my hand. Even the DA sent a letter: HOA status suspended, further charges pending. I hung a copper plaque on my gate. "This land has no HOA and never will." Underneath, "You're on camera and on the wrong property." Some call that petty. Me, I call it a promise. Life went back to what I'd come here for. Sunrise coffee, the smell of pine, the quiet crackle of my old radio tower. Every so often, folks still email me, "How'd you beat the HOA? Truth is simple. Don't let them scare you. Document everything. Never let anyone convince you they own what you've worked for." Last I heard, Karen was trying to sell her place. No takers. Guess the mountain only wants folks who know how to mind their own business. And if you've ever been bullied by a HOA, ask yourself, where's the line between community and tyranny? When does protecting property become abusing power? Is it justice when the bully finally gets what's coming? Or just karma, plain and simple? Drop a comment, tell me your HOA story, where you stand on all this, or how you'd handle a fight for your land. Because out here, sometimes standing your ground is the only way to make peace with the mountain and yourself.